Hi, everybody. Dan Oman, Mike Beer. We're in a celebratory mood here at DRF because last week we exceeded 20,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. I want to thank our producers, Chloe and Lucia, for their excellent work, all the great handicappers and analysts that contribute to the DRF YouTube channel. And of course, I want to thank all of you who allow us into your homes and on your phones to watch the DRF analysis and let us talk racing with you. And if you haven't subscribed just yet, please do so, because join the party. We've got cupcakes, 20K, DRF. Mike, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it certainly is. I got a cupcake too, in case you were wondering. I got one. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for subscribing, Dan. I gotta feel like most people probably join in because of you, Dan. You're a true professional. I'm happy to be working with you, and I'm happy people tune in.
Mike, you're very honest, and that's why you're a great handicapper, because you can spot talent. That's why he's the best analyst in the business. Thank you very much. 20,000 subscribers. Here's to 20K more.
Hi, everyone. David Aragona here with Craig Milkowski, taking a look at one of the stakes on Saturday at Keeneland. Race 8 is the Giants Causeway Stakes, going the 5.5 furlong distance on the turf for the older fillies and mares. And Craig got a full field signed on for this one. Actually, 15 runners entered for this race. 12 will get to participate, as we do have 3 also eligible entrants drawn towards the outside. Haven't yet seen the morning line for this race, but I imagine it's going to be pretty wide open. We do have 2 runners from the Wesley Ward stable, including the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint winner, Twilight Gleaming, from a couple of years ago. She often takes money in her races, but the number 12 Star Divine feels like the horse to beat, although she is drawn all the way in that outside post position.
She is. I actually am looking at the morning line since it just showed up, and it shows that Twilight Gleaming is 9-2. Happy Soul's actually the morning line favorite at 4-1, and Star Divine is 6-1.
Interesting. I'm sure that's taking into account the post position on Star Divine. Happy Soul, another one of those Wesley Ward trainees who I will not be surprised if she takes some money in this race. Well, to sort through this field, let's start by taking a look at that Timeform US pace projector, especially in a race that is likely to feature so much speed, one of these turf sprints. Important to know who's going to get to the front end. And Craig, both of those Wesley Ward trainees do possess plenty of early speed, the number 3 Happy Soul and the number 10 Twilight Gleaming. So interesting to see if their riders used similar tactics in this race, but they could both have to deal with the number 2 Creative Credit, who's drawn towards the inside and typically goes to the front end herself.
It will be interesting to see if Wesley Ward actually runs both of these horses, seeing that they have the same running style. Would create, I think, an uncomfortable situation for maybe a couple of the jockeys. Creative Credit isn't in the greatest form right now, but the one thing he does still show is that high early speed, even though he hasn't been able to finish off his races.
Yeah, it's a race where, as you say, there are a few runners that want to be forward. We'll see if they all run. We'll see if they all have intentions on going to the lead. So definitely a situation where rider tactics could really come into play with how fast they're going on the front end in this Giants Causeway. Let's also take a look at the Timeform US finish projector for this race, the Timeform US algorithm selections. And you can see that the number 12 Star Divine shown as the clear winner of this race, with a pretty close decision between the number 4 Ovra and the number 10 Twilight Gleaming in second. And Craig, not a big surprise. Star Divine is just the kind of horse that's been showing up in every single start. So she's got some nice speed figures coming in here. Just going to have to overcome that wide draw.
Yeah, exactly what you noted in the beginning. Speed figure wise, she's the horse to beat, and that's why she's shown in the front on the finish projector.
And for that reason, let's begin our discussion of the contenders with Star Divine, and we'll take a look at the last time that we saw her in action last November at Aqueduct, when she was the winner of the Autumn Days Stakes, this one going 6 furlongs, and she got her usual good trip this day, stalked outside, was able to run down the speeds here. The track was rated good. It did seem like an Aqueduct turf course late in the season that had taken some rain. Maybe every horse wasn't loving it this day, but she was beating a pretty good rival in Change of Control, who's typically a factor in these races. She's been around for many seasons and is often running at the end of these stakes for the filly and mare turf sprinters. So a feather in Star Divine's cap that she was able to beat that rival, and she had faced a pretty good one in her start prior to that, Craig, when she was defeated by eventual Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner Caravel.
Yeah, she's. I think she found the right level last time. She's a horse who's been competing in a lot of graded stakes. This is a listed stake, but with the big purse, it drew a grade 3 type field. I do think she's probably the horse to beat, but I worry about that 12 post position, particularly at 5.5 furlongs. I just don't know if she has that 5.5 speed. She's won at the distance before at Saratoga, but I think this is a little different as far as company goes.
She is a horse that's gotten some very good trips in her races. She drew the rail in that Franklin Stakes 2 back when she basically just followed inside and was third to Caravel. Also got a very good trip and ride when she was second in this same race last year coming off the layoff. So we know that Star Divine can compete at this level. I think there's just some uncertainty about what kind of trip she's going to pull from this wide draw. Let's talk about one of those Wesley Ward trainees, the number 10, Twilight Gleaming. And this filly also coming off a layoff into this race. We haven't seen her since last October, but this is her performance 2 back, the last time that she was a winner at Del Mar of the Daisy Cutter Stakes. Craig, I'm not sure that she was beating the best field this day, although the third place finisher Legs Galore is a pretty good sprinter out in California. Twilight Gleaming came back last time, the same conditions at Keeneland, and did finish behind Star Divine in that Franklin Stakes that we just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too many knocks. She is just a 4-year-old making her first start of the year, so she could improve off of those speed figures that we see, but they were a little bit lacking for the most part, and I think she's going to wind up being a short price. I wouldn't be surprised if she's more in the 5-2, 3-1 range, just because Wesley Ward gets bet so heavy at Keeneland. I know he has 2 in here, but I suspect she would be the more fancied runner of the 2.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that either. She's a horse that's taken a lot of money in basically every start of her career. The biggest price she's ever been was when she went off at 5-1 in that Breeders' Cup Triumph. But arguably, she hasn't really moved forward since then as she's turned into an older horse. And Craig, I question with her the 5.5 furlong distance because it really seems like she's achieved her best form over a flat 5 furlongs. And in these 5.5 races, it just seems like she shuts down in that final 16th of a mile, which is what happened last time in that Franklin Stakes. So I do have some concerns about the extra distance for Twilight Gleaming. I think you have the opposite concern about the number 5, Amy C, who will be cutting back in distance to the shortest trip that she's ever tried. Let's take a look at her last race out in Southern California when she won the 6.5 furlong Lacienegas going down the hill. And Craig, she's definitely turned into a hillside specialist. Her last 3 victories have been earned over the 6.5 furlong distance coming down the hill at Santa Anita. So I think it remains to be seen, or she has to prove, if she's a true 5.5 furlong turf sprinter.
Yeah, that's a question. She's never even run this short in her life. I think her shortest races are those down the hill. She's cutting back even off of that, but she's done very well sprinting. All of her sprints have resulted in victories, all by open lengths. So I think she's a horse who's dangerous in here, but there are some questions, as you mentioned, with maybe she's just a specialist on the hill, and the 5.5, she's not a horse with high turn of early foot. So maybe she gets lost in the shuffle early in the race.
Yeah, that's a concern for me. She's gotten some pretty good trips in those races down the hill, and I wonder if she'll be a little bit more outrun in this 5.5 furlong turf sprint, which tends to be run at a faster pace. And also, Phil D'Amato, a trainer that has a ton of success on the turf or just in general out in Southern California. The numbers are not nearly as high when he ships. I was looking up some stats in DRF Formulator. In Kentucky, in a 142 horse sample over the past 5 years, his ROI is just 88 cents. So really a barn that does not perform at the same level outside of Southern California as it does in its home state. Let's move on to the other Wesley Ward trainee, Happy Soul, and we'll take a look at her race 2 back, the last time that she was on the turf, actually the only time that she raced on the turf in the Music City Stakes at Kentucky Downs last September, and also in this race is Ouvra, who closes for 3rd. Happy Soul, Craig, I thought she ran fine in her first race on the grass, certainly seemed like she handled it without issue. I thought that she got a very good trip, basically setting the pace the entire way before getting run down at the end. Ouvra puts in a game run to get up for 3rd here, and notably, this is the only reason lost for Ouvra, so you do want to take note of the fact that Happy Soul did beat her.
Yeah, Happy Soul. She ran fine that day. I'm always a little bit leery of the races at Kentucky Downs, being that it's just such a different turf course than what she's going to see at Keeneland this day. So for me, it's a little bit of a downgrade. She's also going to have to deal with the speed of her stablemate if both of them show up.
Yeah, I think she's the kind of horse where I want to let price be the guide. She got a very good trip in that runner-up finish 2 back. I'll be interested to see if she works out the same kind of trip in this race. Ability is definitely there, but I don't think I'd want to take her as the favorite in this race. I am pretty interested in the number 4, Ouvra, Craig. She's the one who was closing for third in that Music City Stakes at Kentucky Downs last year. And well, she hasn't lost since then, and she's run 5 times. She's a very versatile horse. She seems to run on dirt. She's arguably a little bit better on the turf. Her recent victories have come at fairgrounds against slightly weaker competition, but she's earned some nice speed figures in those races. And she's one where trip is not likely to be a concern because she's also pretty versatile with regard to her running style.
Yeah, she's one who's won on the front end as she did last time, as we're looking at, but you can also see she's come from off the pace, both on turf and on dirt. So she's good. The only question mark I have is that those last 2 races came over that quirky fairgrounds turf surface, but it doesn't seem like she's a filly who takes her, who needs that racetrack. She's run well all over the place on turf, on dirt. So I'm not going to hold it against her too much.
Yeah, the word oeuvre means your body of work, and she has compiled quite a body of work, 10 for 16 lifetime, and she's won 9 out of her last 10, so definitely a horse that loves to win races. Let's take a look at a horse that seems to be moving up in class, and it might be doing it at the right time. That's the number 11, Little Jewel, and we'll take a look at her last race when she won the Captiva Island at Gulfstream. Also in here is Trained to Artemis, who we'll talk about in just a bit, but that's Little Jewel coming up the inside, the gray horse. And this was just the 4th start of her career. She was coming off a maiden victory at Gulfstream, and I like the professionalism that she shows, squeezing through inside of a rival here to win going away at the end. Craig, I feel like this is a horse that we might not have seen the best of just yet.
It's going to not have to have been her best if she's going to win here, because you can see her speed figures are lacking compared to some others, but she is lightly raced. And the one thing that really stuck out from this race is what you pointed out, how she was able to move through between horses along the rail. That's not easy to do for a young horse that doesn't have a lot of experience. So I was impressed with that move.
Yeah, Little Jewel definitely getting a class test here. She's a horse that had a very long layoff early in her career, was away from the races for 2.5 years following her debut in 2020. But the connections obviously were patient with her and seem to be getting the best out of her right now. She certainly has pedigree to turn into a special one for these connections, being a half-sister to their horse Little Mike, who did win the Breeders' Cup Turf, though it seems like Little Jewel prefers much shorter distances than her older brother. Also coming out of that Captiva Island was Trained to Artemis. And Craig, she drew the rail here. We'll see if she's able to work out a stalking trip from that post position, because she is a horse that has the speed to be in front, but it seems like more recently she's been content to work out that stalking trip. She's just another one that might have to improve a little bit from a speed figure standpoint.
Right. And for me, it would be hard to see her turning the tables on Little Jewel. That one seems to have more upside. Obviously, Trained to Artemis is much more heavily raced. Draws what could be a tough inside post position. So of the two, I would prefer Little Jewel.
The number 9 is Miner's Queen. Let's take a look at her race 3 back, the last time that she performed at Keeneland, and she was a winner this day, an upset winner, connecting at 26-1, and that is her in the red silks coming up the rail to get the job done, going the same 5.5 furlong distance. Definitely stepping up against a tougher field this time, and her 2 results since then have not been quite as encouraging as this performance was, but maybe getting back to Keeneland will rekindle some of that magic.
Yeah, I think she has a little bit of an excuse the last couple of times. I said that fairgrounds turf course. Some horses handled it, some didn't. Maybe she didn't. The turf synthetic race I want to throw out. If she could run back to that Keeneland race, the 112 she ran that day fits. It's only a couple points below Star Divine, and right there with some of the lower priced, more fancied horses in the field.
Yeah, she got a very good trip that day, but she is getting an interesting rider change to Flavian Pratt in this race. So maybe she's got another good trip coming to her from that excellent rider. The number 2 is Creative Credit, and we'll just mention her kind of circling back to our initial discussion of the pace projector because she is a horse that's drawn inside, who possesses a lot of early speed. Craig, just based on the quality of this field, I'm not sure that she quite stacks up. She might prefer some slightly softer company, but she is one that you'll probably know early.
Yeah, she was running some pretty fast speed figures that we can see towards the bottom of those PPs. They've tailed off, as has where she's finished in the races. But the one thing that hasn't is that early speed with those big 120 plus pace figures to the opening quarter mile the last couple times. So I think she could be trouble for a couple of the speed horses in here.
Let's throw up our top picks for this Giants Causeway. And Craig, I've got to say, this race seems pretty wide open, so I'm not surprised that we've got a lot of different numbers on the board here. We landed in different spots. You're going for a bit of a price with the number 9 Miners Queen.
Yeah, that's a race where I'm just not a big fan of any of the favorites in here. So I wanted to look for a price. And at the big price that Miners Queen's going to be, I'm willing to excuse those last 2 races for the reasons I mentioned and just taking a shot she can work out a trip. And I like the race at Keeneland. And I also noted, as you did, changing to one of the best riders in the country in Flavien Prat.
Yeah, I was kind of torn between the number 4 Ouvra and the number 11 Little Jewel. I just kind of went with the upside of Little Jewel, who's just making the 5th start of her career. I liked her Captiva Island victory last time, and I really liked her maiden victory too back. I think that race pointed her out as one that might have more ability than her speed figures indicate. So going with the upside of the number 11 Little Jewel, Craig's going with the number 9 Miners Queen, getting back to Keeneland. Definitely a lot of options in this Giants Causeway on Saturday at Keeneland. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.